Two detectives, a rookie and a veteran, hunt a serial killer who uses 7 deadly sins as his motives. Long is the way and hard that leads out of hell up to light. This is Se7en. Woo. There you go. Music's over. Music's just going to end. Welcome to Holstered Guns. I am all kinds of discombobulated. I am Phillip about them. I'm joined as always by Leo, who's popped off. I think I accidentally got rid of it. Leo, and also joining us, Jordan Stubing of the Gunslingers, as we spend some time here in the off season going through some of our favorite movies. And tonight we get to one of our favorite movies. Question mark. We get to a movie that I think we all have an affinity for, we all enjoy, but we're going to have to talk about what it is we like about this and why we like this movie. And do we like this movie in the words? This is not Jurassic Park. This is not Princess Bride. This is Se7en. And Se7en is deep and dark, and there's not a lot of hilarity in this movie. There is almost no comedic relief at any point in this movie. So we're going to talk some about it. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing well. I'm actually excited to talk about this one because, yeah, it's definitely different from the ones we've done so far to this point.
Yeah, there is a big chasm between Princess Bride and Se7en.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little surprised y'all did it, but I'm glad you did because it's an amazing film.
It is.
Well, just some of the particulars about the movie. It came out in September of 1995. It's directed by David Fincher. It is only his second feature film. It's written by Andrew Kevin Walker. It stars Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kevin Spacey, and R. Lee Ermey. I don't know if he stars in the movie, but I love R. Lee Ermey, and I wanted him in there. I wanted him in the list, starring in it or not. Budget, they made it on $33 million budget. It grossed at the box office $327 million worldwide. I think this is the first certified, like, absolute hit that we've done on this show. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We did Jurassic Park. Never mind. Jurassic Park made over $1 billion. So that is that. The runtime is 127 minutes. First contact. We love to go through and talk about the first time we came in contact with this film. Jordan, do you remember the first time you watched Se7en or the first time you came in contact with Se7en?
Not specifically, but I remember the feeling it gave me the first time I watched it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think we all remember.
It's one of those, like, Sixth Sense type movies where you get punched in the gut in the end and you'll never forget that. You know what I mean?
For sure.
But no, not specifically. But
Leo, how about you? Do you remember when you first contacted this movie?
I do. It was not in the theater. I watched it after it was released on video. I had heard it was a really good movie. I had not heard about, the ending. People didn't spoil it for me. And like Jordan, I remember watching it in the comfort of my home and not feeling comfortable at all.
Sure.
It is a punch in the gut. It's something you're just like, wow, like you don't see coming. And the funny thing about that is having watched it again, and this is a movie that you're not going to watch frequently because it's one of those things where
I hope not.
Yeah, no. You need some time off from this movie and a significant amount of time. But then you go back and watch it again and you have the same feeling. It gives you the same feeling. You don't become numb to it at all.
No.
It's one of those movies that it's just David Fincher did such a great job. You feel like dirty watching it.
Yeah. You feel like this is something I should not be seeing. This is something I should not be watching.
But also, like, you feel like you're in some of the scenes, like when they're in the kitchen. You know what I mean? It just puts you in it.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've talked before about the year that I was a major in a theater major, and I watched a whole bunch of movies. I remember that this is one of my movies I watched in my dorm room in the year of 2000 when I was in San Angelo. Rented it on VHS and sat down and watched it for the first time. And the reason this made my list was A, I'd heard lots of great things about it, but B, I went on a huge that year and for several years following, I went on a huge Kevin Spacey kick. I saw Usual Suspects with a girl I was dating. We sat down and watched it one night, just rented it out of nowhere. Watched The Usual Suspects. I loved Kevin Spacey in that. That is the same year that American Beauty came out. I thought he was really good in that. And so I just started watching anything that was in his catalog. And what was funny about this one is I kept reading that he was in it, but then when I would look up information about it, you could not find him listed in the credits. He is actually uncredited. He does have a credit right at the end of the movie, but he is virtually uncredited in his performance in this movie. He requested that because he wanted a surprise to pop up in the movie. He knew that if you're watching the movie and you're 45 minutes in and you've seen Morgan Freeman and you've seen Gwyneth Paltrow and you've seen Brad Pitt, you're going to go, wow, the one person we haven't seen yet is the killer. So that's got to be Kevin Spacey. And so that's where he was. Now, obviously, I have a completely different feeling about Kevin Spacey now than I did then. But one of the things that I've learned to do over the last few years, and I encourage everyone that can hear me to do this, is learn to divorce the art from the artist. It is going to help you so much in your enjoyment of things if you can learn to take the art and the artist and separate them and say, just because I like the art that they produced does not mean I like them as a person or as a thing. I don't like Kevin Spacey. I think he is one of the more abominable people that I've ever heard of. And the fact that he is just completely unrepentant of the things that he's been accused of. He has virtually admitted them and he is unrepentant of them. Makes me feel even worse about him. But you cannot deny that he brings something special when he is on film. And I'm going to divorce those things. I'm going to take those things apart and enjoy the art without enjoying Kevin Spacey or without being a huge fan of Kevin Spacey.
Which might be why he plays such a great diabolical piece of crap.
Yeah, which I mean, he did a lot of. Like, he did that a lot in his career. His final sort of role that he was famous for before all of his
House of Cards
stuff blew up was House of Cards, and Frank Underwood, this absolutely awful person who is also very unapologetic about who he is. Works well for Kevin Spacey and works well in this movie. So that was my first contact, was just watching through Kevin Spacey's library. He's in some strange stuff. He is a hitman in See No Evil, Hear No Evil, which is a Richard Pryor, Gene Wilder where one of them is blind and one of them is deaf. He is one of the hitmen in that movie. So I watched that movie just, for that. Mo Ferrante checking in says, I hear you. It's like that in the music industry as well. Yes, you can listen to Michael Jackson's music. You can enjoy all of the things that Michael Jackson's music means to you in nostalgia and all of those things without liking Michael Jackson. You don't have to approve of Michael Jackson's lifestyle to enjoy what his music meant to you when you were a kid in the 1980s or 1990s. You can do it. It's possible.
R. Kelly made some real bangers.
Yeah, R. Kelly. P. Diddy is going to be that guy. Like, you're going to have to separate those things. So what makes this film, Seven, great?
The storytelling is phenomenal.
Speak on that. What do you mean by that?
I'm trying to think of how I want to put it. I mean, the way that they piece together the whole Seven Deadly Sins thing, it comes in with Brad Pitt as a detective. You've got the dynamic with him and Morgan Freeman, and then it slowly kind of starts to develop and it sucks you in. And when they show up on the first scene, which I believe is Gluttony, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
At that point, you're in it, man. And
Hard
you're
to
on the
forget.
ride.
Mm-hmm.
And I like I said earlier, it really just puts you in the movie. It makes you feel like you're there, and I think that says a lot.
And they went through such extremes to put you in there. I mean, the actors did, the movie makers. I mean, like, we're talking about Gluttony. One of the things I read, they brought in, and the number 7 is a repeating theme throughout this movie. I think it was obviously
sure.
intentionally done. But 7 crates of cockroaches were brought in for that scene. And they had a cockroach wrangler, a professional cockroach wrangler, whatever that is. That was the title of that guy that came in and was responsible for that. And that actor had to sit there. They plugged his ears and his nose,
Right, I read
with
that.
plugs, so that the cockroaches wouldn't be able to crawl into them while he sat there, because he had to sit there for a very long time doing take after take. The victims, the actors that portrayed these victims actually went through a lot of trauma to really portray the victims. The storytelling, like Jordan says, is so great and so concentrated on the audience, but not in the typical way that most thrillers, most suspense movies do it. It's kind of putting you right in there. You're almost like, it's almost like you're a third detective, or another guy that's just like looking over their shoulder at each of these scenes, and it's terrifying.
You can almost puke in the bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I actually read that the cinematographer used a lot of his aesthetic, the over-the-shoulder kind of style that you just made reference to, from the television show Cops. Like, he loved that idea of being a silent ride-along with the police, that was the aesthetic that he was kind of going for with some of this. So that's interesting. I think for me, one of the...
Go ahead. The guy that played the I think it was a lawyer in the greed scene.
Mm-hmm.
They had so much fake blood on him that he got stuck to the floor. He sat there for so long.
And all they had to do for that guy was take some pictures, because you don't ever see his body. No. You see him in some pictures that they're looking through. Like, that's all.
So
I think he's on the floor in that scene, isn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's bound and on the floor.
Yeah.
I thought they had already taken his body out the first time.
When you see the scene, he's already out. Okay. There's some detectives that are doing the scene, but there's the greed on the floor and the blood. Right. But then there's pictures that portray what the scene was,
right,
before they removed him. And that guy, when they cast him, they told him, that he was going to play the part of a sleazy lawyer. That's all they told him.
Well,
they
did wrong. Like, that's what he played.
He was, from what I read, he was actually upset when he figured out what his part actually was, and then fitting to the greed sin that he was portraying, he actually demanded 5 times the amount of money that was supposed to be paid for the part, and got it.
That's a pretty small role.
Yeah,
real small. The thing that makes this movie amazing to me is that you have 4 actors in these roles, in these 4 main roles of this movie, and I don't believe there is anybody more perfect at that moment than the 4 people they cast. Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Kevin Spacey make this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are perfect. Brad Pitt plays. I was just talking to a friend today because I was talking about us doing this show tonight about Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt, it's not fair. You should not be that good looking and as talented as he is. You should have to share some of that with somebody else. You don't get to be as talented of an actor as you are and look like you do and never age, apparently. Like, I'm done. He should have to share some of that, some talent, some of his looks, something he needs to share. But Brad Pitt is David Mills. I think he got paid by the F word in this particular movie because I think he says it like 200 times. I think that's probably how they were deciding what they were going to pay him, is like, how many times can you work this in? And that's what we'll pay you.
I feel like with Brad Pitt, especially earlier in his career, he'd pick up like tics. Like a lot of the time in his early movies, he's eating constantly.
Yes.
Or saying that. Like it's kind of like a thing that repeats throughout the movie. It's like his go-to, but still great performance. I mean,
Morgan Freeman. What can you say about Morgan Freeman? Like, Morgan Freeman plays this character. I believe he is a world-weary noir detective.
Oh, yeah.
mm-hmm.
Like, he
Ready
is that character. He has a hat. He wears that hat all the way through the movie that looks like he's been wearing it for the entirety of his career. Like, just his entire time as a detective, he's been wearing this old fedora hat that is rumpled and just ready to fall apart. And then we can get to the two less liked people now. And this is where I think it's interesting. I read a lot of message boards and looked at some message boards on Reddit, some of that kind of stuff. And a lot of people going, oh, Gwyneth Paltrow was terrible in this movie.
I don't
know. She was great. Gwyneth Paltrow is pretty unlikable right now. Like, most people don't like Gwyneth Paltrow a whole lot right now. And I think they're letting their feelings right now affect what they think of her in this movie. But she is excellent in this movie.
No, I think she was perfect.
Yeah, she was. I mean, she's out of place. You know, she's not comfortable where she's at. She's doing it out of love and devotion for her husband. You know, she's clearly not happy that she's there. And she's also, you know, torn on this decision because the secret that she's keeping from her husband that she reveals to Somerset. And all of that character building that we see in her, I think she plays it just perfectly. You know, she's trying to be the good wife because she loves her husband that much, even though she's absolutely terrified because she's about to bring a child into the world, or, you know, she believes she is about to, and she does not want to do it where she's at, but she knows that her husband is very clearly happy to be there, very clearly excited to expand his career and to do more and to make something of himself. You know, as they show in the beginning, he's very eager, and I think she plays the role perfectly. I don't understand the criticism for her on at all.
And then the last one is Kevin Spacey, and I'll be honest with you, I love the other three performances in this movie. I think they're incredible, but I think Kevin Spacey makes this movie. From the moment he shows up in the precinct, blood covered, hands out, he commands your attention throughout the rest of the movie. And that's exactly what this character, this person, needs to do, because he's had your attention the entire movie. You haven't seen him, you haven't known him, but you've been looking for him through the entire movie. You've seen him twice, but you don't even realize you've seen Kevin Spacey. He is the photographer in the stairs, and then he is there in the chase scene.
Mm-hmm. He disguises his voice as a photographer. Like, it's very clearly Kevin Spacey trying not to sound like Kevin Spacey.
Yes, he's doing he's doing kind of a New York affectation, like, hey, I got rights here, hey. Which is great. I love that they didn't use somebody else to try to throw us off the scent. They didn't need to because we didn't know it was Kevin Spacey in theory. His back and forth with both of them in the car. Who would think that a 10-minute car scene that is just dialogue could be that tense and riveting, and just you don't want the car ride to end for several reasons. You feel something bad is coming. You know something bad is coming, but they're also just killing it. Like this whole conversation about innocence and guilt, and we see a deadly sin on every corner, and all of these things.
And him getting under Brad Pitt's skin is perfect. And also the scenery of them driving down that road. It's in the desert, all of the electrical lines, something about that was so, you just feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere. And then you see a van coming down the road.
Yeah, it's just desolate and terrible. And Spacey just does the moment, and we're going to get into the ending because I think the ending itself is part of what makes this movie great. So we're going to talk about that in a minute. But there's a moment that Kevin Spacey has that he communicates so much with just his face. The line itself is simply, "Oh, he didn't know."
It's a cock of the head.
It's a cock of the head and this smirk of, "Oh, this is better than I even thought it was." And he communicates all of that subtext without anything in the line other than, "Oh, he didn't know." And just, he is evil personified in that moment of the giddiness of wow, he didn't know.
And it's come together even more perfectly.
Yeah.
It's a triangle of different perspectives that just all work together, and you know what's going on and you see it, and it's just perfectly done by all three. Like
everybody. So all three of them in that moment, and we'll talk about it now at the end. All three of them are doing such a great job of communicating. Brad Pitt's confusion and working through it in real time because he's the only one that's behind now. Everybody else knows what's happened. Somerset's aware. John Doe, of course, was there. He knows what's happened. Mills is the only one that has to process this in real time, and you see him go through it all, and like all of it is there. Morgan Freeman's resignation of what is going to happen. He knows what is going. He knows how this is going to end. He knows what's going to happen and how this has to. He tries to talk Mills out of it, but he knows.
More than that, he's struggling with how he should deal with this. He's struggling to find an answer to how he can keep John Doe's plan from coming to fruition. And he knows there's just no way. You can see it on his face. He's struggling. He's still trying to find a clear way through there where John Doe doesn't get what he wants. And he knows there's just he like you said, it's resignation. He knows he's beat. He knows it's not possible. But you could see on his face, he's really struggling accepting it. He's trying to find something, and there's just nothing there. It's gonna happen.
Yeah, the end is incredible. We'll talk more about what the end could have been a little later. What else you got, Jordan?
I was just gonna say, and this goes back to the quality of the storytelling, but it's like as I'm watching, I watched it last night, and as I'm watching, I'm like, what would I do? How do you? He's right there. And, if you put yourself in his shoes, I don't see it going any differently for me.
I do the same thing.
No,
I do the same thing.
And he's already dangled. His lawyer has already dangled the idea of an insanity plea. This guy could do this and still not pay for his crime. And is there anything that he can do to pay for his crime that is going to be, satisfying to me as a husband, as a father? No.
Yeah.
No. Become wrath. Mo says, become wrath. And he does. And we all understand in that moment why he does. And even Somerset understands why he does. And that's why it works.
But the flip of the coin is like you avenge your wife and child, but you also, in doing so, complete his plan.
Right.
So, you know, it's a lose-lose.
When Somerset says to Mills, if you kill him, he will win. He might as well have just said the word checkmate. Like, you are in checkmate. Whatever you do now, you lose.
You lose.
You either let this man live and breathe and continue to exist and do not avenge your wife and your unborn child, or you kill him and throw away your entire life and everything that you thought you were going to be. The hero you thought you were going to be is gone forever. Checkmate. It's over. He's won. He's won the game.
Yep.
It is an incredible ending. It is a shocking ending. It is something that I encourage folks to go watch the YouTube video that Cinefix puts out called The Art of the Scene. And they talk about this final scene here they do a great job of breaking it down. I could pretend that I noticed all of those things that they talk about, or I can just tell you to go watch that. It is really, really well done as far as what they're doing with cameras and what they're doing with positions, and all of that stuff is really, really, really good. And you should go watch it. Cinefix, which puts out great movie content, and it's The Art of the Scene 7. Go watch their video. It's really, really awesome. No better four people for this movie than those people. The other thing that I think makes this film great is the music. Howard Shore and Nine Inch Nails together just works in a way that I never realized it could work. Howard Shore is amazing. Go ahead.
One of the best opening credit scenes of any movie.
Oh yeah, I thought the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, the credit scene is one of the best that I think Hollywood has ever put together. And there's some great stuff out there. But if I'm going to have to sit through a 2.5 minute or 3 minute credit scene, make it interesting. And boy, they do. Like it makes you feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It sets the tone for the whole movie.
Yes, it does.
It does. It does a great job of that.
Yes, it does.
That it reminded me of that I was thinking about last night, and it's probably because it's the same time period, but it feels like it's in the same universe as Fight Club, in a sense.
Yeah, you know? and that's the Fincher sort of effect, because he's both of those. He directs both of those, but yeah, absolutely, it's got that same sort of feel to it. The Fincherverse. The aesthetic. They actually ran the film through a special wash that washed out a lot of the color and upped the contrast. This movie is almost a black and white movie.
It's pretty dark, yeah. Mm-hmm.
There is some color to it, but there's no saturation to any of the color. Even when they're in the sunlight at the end of the movie, it is really, really desaturated. It could be almost a black and white movie. Just very, very little color. And that in and of itself gives you a feel through the whole movie of what you're watching.
The most, you bring up something, a great point. You bring up something that I hadn't realized until just now. And I think I noticed it because of what you're saying, Philip.
What's up?
You guys tell me. The most color you see in this movie is in the apartment with the teacups that she has hanging in the kitchen counter overhead. And I thought to myself, they're in a, they make a joke. One of the moments of brevity in this movie is the soothing, vibrating.
Yes, the vibrating.
And they start laughing about it, right? And I'm thinking to myself, why would she have teacups hanging in a vibrating apartment? Like, they're going to fall, they're going to break, they're going to shatter. But you know what? Maybe that was intentional, because I think that's the most color you see in the whole movie. There are color, and they're all different colors, and they're hanging up in that window, and they stick out so much. I mean, you can't help but notice them. And it's like they're in this environment that it's so dark and shaking, and it's a hostile environment to be in if you're a teacup, and there's just no way you're going to survive it.
So the
And
humanity
that's the
in
movie.
this movie is Tracy Mills. She is the humanity, which is part of what makes the ending. Spoilers, by the way, if you haven't seen Se7en and you're watching this, stop and go watch the movie.
Go watch the movie first.
Spoilers. But anyway, you've already been ruined by this point. But she is the humanity, and part of the horrific moment at the end when you realize what has happened and is going to happen is that the humanity, the only human, the only real humanity of this movie has been lifted out of it. She is gone. And that's part of what makes, and I think that that's tied to it. I think that collection of teacups and the fact that that is when things are the brightest is connected to that whole idea of her being the humanity of the movie.
Can I say something? I feel like the reds in this movie were way more vibrant than any other color. Like the blood pops out, their neons when they're going in the underground. You know what I mean? And when they're in this apartment, the red room, excuse me, and the walls were red. It just like, I feel like that was more.
There are some moments of levity. Kevin Spacey's line delivery when they get out of the car and Mills says, "What do you got?" Somerset says, "A dead dog." Kevin Spacey's line delivery on "I didn't do that" is just
that's the one funny line in the movie.
Yeah.
And then there's a great moment where they're working over in the apartment after dinner. They're working over the file and they're trying to just find a new angle, find something. And he asks him if he wants a beer. "I'm going to get a beer. You want one?" And he goes, "No, but I'll take some wine." And he pours a glass, not a wine glass, but a tall glass of wine. And he brings it to him and sets it down. And if you don't pay attention, you miss it. But he goes to flip the page or something and picks up this glass and realizes that he has this tall glass full of wine and just looks at it like, what? This guy doesn't know what he's doing. This is not how you serve wine. Because that again is Mills and that is Somerset. And they don't like, I was telling Leo before we recorded, they don't like each other. They're not friends. They're not buddies. They get along because they have to work together, but they are not partners. The closest they ever get to partners, Leo brought up as we were talking, is when they are shaving and getting ready to go on the drive and they start joking around with each other a little bit. And it seems like, Leo, it's Mills, right? It seems like Mills goes to say something, but then cuts himself off and just says, never mind. That's the closest that they ever seem to get to being partners. They don't like each other. They don't care for each other. They don't see things the same way. They don't have the same lives. Somerset has been a loner all of his life. Mills is married. They are very different people, and it's very clear that they don't really care for each other a whole lot.
They're very contrasting. And that's one of the things that I really like about this movie and these characters is Mills is the new guy just there, gung-ho, ready to make this career. At the very beginning when Somerset realizes this is something that's just beginning, there was no motive, the way the gluttony character was killed. Is like there's more to this. There was meaning to the way he was killed. It wasn't just to kill the guy. And he recognizes this and he goes, "I don't want this case. This can't be the last thing I do.
This can't be my last duty, man."
Yeah, it may never end.
Yeah.
And right away, Mills is like, "Give it to me. I want it. Take it." And there's that whole discussion. They're complete polar opposites. Somerset has lived there and been through this and seen what the city, what the environment around him has become, and he's saturated in it, and he can't wait to get out. There's a scene where he gets in a cab and he's driving off, and he's looking at the pandemonium going on outside, and the taxi driver says, "Where to?" And he says, "Far away from here." He's just saturated in what the world has become, that world in that city that he's endured through his career, and he just can't wait to get the heck out. He's done. Where Mills
yeah.
is, he can't wait to dive into it, and he sees himself as untouchable, separate from all of that.
Yes.
He's making fun of the killer, he's bat crazy, he's a lunatic, he's this, he's that. He's joking, making jokes, cracking at him. And Somerset's I beg to differ, all the way up until the end, that scene we talked about in the car, he feels untouchable until the very end. Then he goes for his swim that he couldn't wait to jump in. And man, did he really go in deeper than he thought he was.
He absolutely underestimates the John Doe over and over and over again. Like he just he writes him off as being insane, and some of that is true. What's funny about this is they're both wrong and they're both right. Mills writes him off as he's just crazy, he's just insane, he's just off his nut, he's a nutball. I love the delivery of he's a nutball. Just because he has a library card doesn't make him Yoda. That's true. There is truth to that. On the other side of it, I love the way Somerset just, they're talking in a bar at one point and they say, we catch this guy. And he turns out to be Satan himself. That might live up to what you think he is, but he's not Satan. He's just a man.
Just a man.
He's just a regular man. It's very well written. It's both of these characters, or all four of these characters actually, are very well written. I do love the idea of like, this can't be my last duty, give it to him. And the police captain played by Arlie Army, who is just incredible, is like, that's not how it works. You don't get to decide that you're not going to do this. This is your case.
I think the captain realizes that they can't do this without each other. You know what I mean? Like you need both ends of the spectrum on this one. You've got Morgan Freeman, who has all the experience, but is also burnt out. And then you've got Brad Pitt, who's got all the energy, but is naive. And when you combine those, you
get that medium where he's kind of pulling him back into it. And then at the end, he doesn't leave. He clearly says that at the end. I mean, that's a great line. I forget the quote. Yeah. And he says, the world is a beautiful place. It's worth fighting for. He goes, I agree with the second part.
Yeah. I agree with the second part. Wow. An ending that did not originally exist in the script. It originally ended right after the execution of John Doe. That was just supposed to be the end. And test audiences felt like they needed some sort of tag. You need something on to the end of it. And so they added in the Hemingway quote and that idea of I'll be around, which is a very noir thing it's a very neo-noir movie. And that's a very noir thing, is I'll be here, I'll be around, I will still be part of it. What would you change? That's what's great about the movie. What would you change about the movie? I only had one thing that I wanted to change about this movie. It bothered me when I watched it through this time, and it probably shouldn't have bothered me a whole bunch, but we have Chekhov's knife in this movie. There are 3 distinct moments where your attention is drawn to the switchblade that Morgan Freeman carries. At the very beginning, he is putting things, like first shot of the movie, he's putting things in his pocket and the switchblade is prominently displayed. Later in the movie, he is throwing the switchblade and showing you his prowess at throwing the switchblade and throwing it accurately. And then he hands his knife. He hands his knife at one point to Mills, and Mills looks at it funny and he says, it's a switchblade. 3 times they draw your attention to this knife. Did they only do that because he needs a knife to open the box at the end of the movie? would I, as an audience member, as a watcher of this movie, gone, I hate this movie. Where'd he get a knife from? The guy carries a pocket knife. That's fine. Why did we need our attention drawn to this particular knife 3 different times if it had no payoff whatsoever? I don't understand what the point of the knife is. Can y'all help me?
Well, I think it could have been done in one. And the scene with him throwing it at the dartboard was, it just kind of exemplified his characteristic. You know what I mean? He's the old detective that's what he does at night while he's trying to mull over what's going on. Guest appearance.
Hi.
Okay, I'll go back inside. I'll be in there.
They're so cute.
Right.
I bet they haven't seen 7 yet.
No.
Good job.
That one's a little down the road.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. For sure.
So cute.
That is the only thing about this movie as I watched it this time through that I'm like, I don't understand what we're doing with this, and I don't know why it's here. And if you're not going to pay it off at the end, I don't need it. I don't need these ideas.
It didn't bother me. I think what Jordan says, I think that's part of it. I think, yeah, it's like it's something repetitive that he does to kill time because he just doesn't know what to do with himself anymore. And I also think it shows that maybe in the past there was a more, dark, aggressive side of Somerset. I mean, he carries a knife, and he knows how to handle it, and he can throw it, and he can throw it accurately. And there might just be a subtle hint of who Somerset was at one time, but that's just gone from him now.
I also feel like it might have just been a Morgan Freeman thing. Because the scenes where he's throwing it at the dartboard, that's really him throwing it. And he's nailing the bullseye over and over again if you watch it. And I feel like that might have just been something that he wanted to bring to it. That might be something personal to him. I'm not sure. But
entirely possible. It just bothered me this time through. And didn't bother me huge. Like, it wasn't like, I can't believe. The only other thing I think I would have changed is I would have given John C. McGinley a bigger role. I did not realize that California, the leader of the SWAT group, is played by John C. McGinley. He is an incredible actor. Most people know him from Scrubs. He's kind of the older resident doctor that gives Zach Braff and his group such a hard time throughout Scrubs. But he's a really, really funny guy, really good actor. And I can't believe that I did not notice him until that last watch through. My last watch through. Right? Huh?
This was very early on in his career, if I'm not mistaken.
Very early. Yeah, very early.
So
what else would you have changed about this movie?
I don't know. I really just love the movie.
Yeah. I got one thing. And I'm with Jordan. The movie is pretty darn near perfect for what it is.
Yes.
It's fine the way it is. You don't need to change anything. But if there was one thing that bothered me about this movie, the FBI tip, the FBI guy tip, the library, he goes into the whole thing about, that they keep records and they flag certain books that are checked out by the same person, and then they come up with this list. And the first one they visit ends up being John Doe. I would have put 1 or 2 in there because they're in this city, and the whole point is how dark a place this city has become, and it shouldn't have been the guy, the one guy. I mean, I could see there being multiple people that have that sort of interest in those same things, and that could kind of creep you out even more. Just how many there were. It wasn't just one guy. Maybe he's the 3rd or 4th guy. Maybe just fit in a couple more in there to kind of punch that point through. Because that was kind of the point. Where they were living was a very dark and violent place.
Sure.
And it could have been a time thing, but we could have run into a few more weirdos before we
Yeah.
You know,
I do love the juxtaposition of 6 years pre 9/11, 7 or 8 years pre Patriot Act, and this idea of like, oh, they're tracking the books you're checking out, and that's bad and borderline illegal. And now we would all be like, yeah, of course they are. Of course they're tracking the books.
They probably aren't even tracking the books anymore at this point. We got bigger fish to fry.
Right, for sure. I do, for all of the things that I could say about Mills' intelligence, he's not the brightest guy. He is really passionate, but he's not the brightest guy. He is driven by his emotions. But when he gets the upper hand on Somerset, when they're arguing at the door, we have to have a reason to knock on this door. And he's like, you're right. I'm sorry, you're right. And then he just kicks open the door and he's like, well, no use talking about it now. He's talking about it now. It's done. It's really the one time he outsmarts anybody in the entire movie. And he really does a great job at just, now we got to come up with something because we've kicked this door in. Unless you can, I love when he looks down at it and goes, unless you can fix that.
And then you come right full circle back around to him getting outsmarted in the chase scene.
Mo says, how do they arrive? Explain arriving at the door before kicking in the door. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, other than the FBI stuff, which at the time would have been really, really, in 1995, we would have been like, ooh, Big Brother is watching. That's outside of the purview of the federal government. Post 9/11, we're all okay with that. We're like, yeah, of course they are. Of course they're collecting information on us to make sure we're not terrorists or murderers. Of course. The expectation is there. But pre 9/11, I think all of us would have seen this as some sort of huge privacy issue. They're flagging the books I check out. That's crazy. Anything else we would change?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's really well done. When you think about this being Fincher's first real movie on his own, he did Aliens 3 before this, but he did not have control of that. And he almost stopped doing movies over Alien 3.
Well, he was going to, right? He was done.
Yeah, he said he said I'd rather die of colon cancer than make another movie when he made Alien 3. He had such a terrible time with and Alien 3 is a mess. Like, you can go back and watch it now and it is a mess. And it's because the studio got overly involved in trying to make it what it needed to be and did not let artists make art. They tried to make the right Alien movie and they failed. It's a mess. It's a big, big mess.
It's
so how it could have
done.
It is. And his first, like I say, his first real film on his own. So how it might have been different. This. Let's talk about some casting. Actually, let's start with Fincher. Fincher was not the first person asked to direct this movie. They actually asked Guillermo del Toro to make this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And del Toro would not make this movie. And do you know why, Leo?
He didn't like the ending.
It was too dark.
Oh, give me a break.
Del Toro made
Guillermo del Toro.
And this movie was too dark for him?
Mm-hmm.
That's a trip.
Yikes. Some other might have beens. Mills. Brad Pitt's character. Originally, some of the ideas for David Mills was Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, no.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? He would have also had to rewrite it because he needs lots of control of the movies that he's in, and he would have had to do a rewrite on it. Denzel Washington, also a possibility for David Mills. Not against that. Like, that's in another world. I would like to see how Denzel does that. I'm okay with that.
That could work. Mm-hmm.
Somerset, before we had Morgan Freeman, we could have had Al Pacino.
I could see Al Pacino with Denzel.
Yeah, it's a different movie, but I mean, it's okay. I mean, it's.
I don't see Denzel with Freeman, and I don't see Pacino with Pitt, but I could see in an alternate universe Denzel and Pacino doing this movie.
I can see Pacino and Pitt. I don't know.
That's kind of like down the devil's advocate road, right?
Yes.
Kind of the same.
This is a really weird time for Pacino. You're right. You're after Sin of a Woman. You're just before, I think, Devil's Advocate. So it is full on Pacino at this point. Like it is heat. It is it is that Pacino that you would get. And I don't know.
The more I think about it, I love Denzel. Denzel's a great actor. I love a lot of his movies. Man on Fire was great. Training Day. He's done some great things. Book of Eli. But see, that's the thing about Brad Pitt and what he brought to Mills. Denzel is always an edgy guy. He's a guy that like has a dark side to him in everything he does. That's the thing about Mills and Pitt, the way he portrays him. Because if you think about it, Mills is a jerk. Mills is out here. His career is first. He's putting his wife through what she's putting her through. Doesn't even know that she's expecting. Obviously doesn't, he's not in touch with her as much as she is with him. She definitely loves him more than he loves her. He's ready to just take the case at the beginning. He's like, he just met this guy and he's like, he doesn't want it. Fine. F him. You'll give it to Mills is really a jerk. And if he wasn't so darn likable and so darn, even though he kind of like feels disconnected and better than the guys that he's after, and thinks that he's going to be so great that, he's out to make a name for himself. If it wasn't for all of, it wasn't for all of that, if it wasn't for the way Brad Pitt portrays him, he's not a likable guy. But the way Pitt does it, and the way he jokes, and he's a nut job and this and that, and then getting the cliff notes and just doing stuff like that, it makes him likable. So you actually really, really sympathize for him at the end. Because you could look at it the other way and say he got what was coming to him. He lost what should have been his biggest priority in life and never was throughout that movie. Throughout that movie, he never prioritized his home life and his wife. He didn't even know that they were going to have a family. She couldn't even tell him. But, and so he's not really a nice guy, but Brad Pitt makes the character so darn likable. Denzel wouldn't be able to do that.
I do love I noted it this time through, and gosh, I hope I'm getting this right. He refers to himself as Serpico. She doesn't do it. He does.
Mm-hmm.
That says something about who he is. Like, he believes that he is the hero of his story. And we all do to a point. But he's even naming himself the hero of the story, of his story.
Definitely a little bit of a sociopath going on there.
Mm-hmm.
Other guys that could have been John Doe instead of Kevin Spacey. The part was originally written with Ned Beatty in mind, which is really interesting. Ned Beatty, Deliverance, and a ton of other stuff that you've seen him in. Nothing like this. He's played a really, really skeezy guy before. Maybe even a murderer, but I can't remember what it was in other than Deliverance, of course. I think he's pretty skeezy in that. But he was what was originally in mind when Andrew Kevin Walker wrote this film. The one that I find interesting, and I love Spacey and what he does with the character, but I would be interested in seeing this version of the film. Our own Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer, was at one point attached to the project to be John Doe. That's interesting.
I could see that.
That is really interesting.
It would be different, though. I mean,
It would. Yeah.
Spacey is so perfect at being Spacey, the bad guy.
Yes.
He just got that smugness that really, if anybody else played the character, it would be a completely different. They would have to take it a little bit of a different direction.
Yeah.
To make it work. But I could see, has Val really ever been a bad guy? I don't think so.
Iceman. I mean, no.
He's been a D-bag, but he's never really been a bad guy. But even with Iceman, in the end, he's his best friend. I mean,
right. He played like the worst Batman. No, Clooney played the worst Batman. I should be fair.
Clooney.
Clooney's Batman. Yikes. So those are some of the actors that could have been different. The director that could have been different. But here's the real thing that I want to focus on. What could have been different about this movie is not necessarily casting or direction, but the end was something that New Line Cinema did not want to do. They actively fought against the end of the movie that we got. So much so that they gave the director, David Fincher, notes. And here's some things you should do instead. Instead of her head in the box, why not the dog's head in the box? The dogs. He's a dog person. He loves his dogs. He calls them children. It's basically the same thing, right? Let's just have the dogs' heads in the box. Would that have been?
If they'd have done that, we wouldn't be talking about this movie.
Yeah, I think so too.
We wouldn't be talking about the movie.
And that brings up one point that I got to mention. I told you, Phillip, before we started recording. I immediately knew that at that point in his life, Brad Pitt was not a dog owner, because for him to come in and have the big dogs and they're confined in that room on the newspaper, and the first thing he does is fall down and roll around the newspaper. Yeah. I'm like, he doesn't own a dog.
A little bit of overacting there.
So yeah, the dog's heads in the box would have been something different. I think you're right, Jordan. We're not talking about this movie. If New Line gets its way, and that is the end that we get. It also doesn't drive Mills to do what he does. I mean, it's upsetting for sure, but it does not drive Mills to it. It is not enough to push him over the edge, I don't think. The other thing, the other ending, which I want to talk about and discuss a little bit. We were talking about this right when Jordan popped on and he goes, ooh, are we talking about this? Are we live? And we weren't. We were just kind of discussing it. New Line proposed the idea that Morgan Freeman's character, Somerset, would draw his gun and kill John Doe as a sacrifice for Mills to complete or to short circuit John Doe's plan so that he doesn't win, and to save Mills from destroying his life, he would draw his gun and be the one to execute. It's a different movie. It's a different ending. I'm not sure it's bad. I think what we got was better for the story, because I think it's an empty sacrifice. Somerset is alone. He is retiring. He has nothing. So he's not giving up anything. There is not much that he is sacrificing by, yes, Mo says it, by falling on the sword. He does not sacrifice much to be the one to execute John Doe.
John Doe.
I have a question. Is this the only other one? Because I heard a different one.
Oh, what'd you hear?
What I read was that somehow, if I'm not mistaken, John Doe kills Morgan Freeman, and then Brad Pitt kills John Doe. But I might be wrong, because I don't know how he would have done that if he was handcuffed.
Right. There are some, the problem with all of this is I had somebody ask me. I was talking about this movie with a friend of mine today, and he said, "Do you like the ending?" And I said, "I think it ended the way it had to end. Because any other way this movie ends, you have to disregard that David Mills is driven by his emotion. It is the one incontrovertible fact that we know about David Mills. We can argue over whether he's a bad husband or a good husband, whether he's a bad cop or a good cop, whether he's smart or dumb. We can argue about all of those things based on what we're given in the movie. The one thing we cannot argue is that he is driven by emotion. To find out the three things that he finds out in quick succession: his wife is dead, she was pregnant, his partner that he doesn't like and has known a week was aware of the pregnancy. To find out all of that information at one time and not be the one to pull the trigger is disingenuous to the rest of the movie. If it does not end the way it ends, all of the rest of the movie makes no sense. The only thing that could happen was for him to execute John Doe.
I also think it was genius that they didn't show the head. From a movie as gory as this movie was, we saw everything, but we didn't see that, and I think that was smart.
I got something to say on that, Philip. We talked a little bit about it earlier. So there are people. I read an article on this movie, and it was some little known facts and stuff about the movie. There are people who swear you saw the head at the end of the movie. Haven't watched the movie in a while, but they swear that you actually see the head
for like a split second, or what?
No, that it's shown. Yeah, maybe just momentarily. Now there is a split second of a frame, and I think it shows his wife.
Yes,
but it's like a frame, like a flash. If you blink, you miss it. But it's not her head in the box. It's a complete frame of his wife. It's kind of just driving it home to you, the audience, as you're watching, that what you think is in that box is what's in that box.
Well, doesn't this tie into what Fincher did in Fight Club, where he
in Fight Club? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. What you're both referencing is that there is one frame of Gwyneth Paltrow. It is almost a stock, just picture of her, just a portrait of her, but it is a 1 second. It is inserted just before Mills makes the decision to pull the trigger. And all of that is like, you can see when that happens on his face. And if you watch very carefully, just before he makes that decision that I'm going to do this, I don't care what the consequence is, there's one frame of Gwyneth Paltrow, of Tracy. It's genius. It's because you don't even clock that you've seen it until you're looking for it, and it does exactly what it needs to do, because it gives him the reason to make the decision.
But this is what this movie does to you, and this all ties in. I'm going to answer your question, Philip, on could that work or why that wouldn't work. This is what that movie does to you, where people swear they saw the head. People are affected by this movie so much by what we see that we don't realize the stuff that we didn't see, because it's all in here. It's all in here. It's so well done, and the story is so well told that even the parts that we don't see, we make the connections in our brain, and it's terrifying. It's very real. It's very real to us. I texted Philip after watching the movie before we we're going to do this review, and I said, even knowing what's going to happen, I'm sitting there during that car scene and coming up to that final thing, and I don't want to know what I already know. I don't want it to be true all over again. The first time I didn't realize it was happening. I've seen this movie, maybe 2 or 3 times since. And every single time I'm sitting there wishing what I know to be true isn't. And it just affects you that much. Let me tell you one of the facts that I read about this movie that I never even dawned on me until I read it and realized it to be true. This is not a violent movie. There are only 2 acts of violence in the entire movie that the audience sees. One at the very end when Mills shoots John Doe, and the other one is during the chase scene where Mills is chasing John Doe, and John Doe jumps off of the dump truck and hits him in the head. Outside of that, there is no violent act portrayed in the entire film. Everything we see is after the fact. Every horror that we live through is already done. We just experience the aftermath, but yet the violence is there in our heads, and it feels so real that, I mean, you guys tell me if this is true for you or not. I know when I watched it just the other night with Dolores, she looks at me and she's like, "This is the movie you made me watch." I think whoever puts that movie into the DVD or presses play or streaming service and presses play, the person that does that at the end of the movie, everybody's pissed off at that person because you just put them through that.
Probably so.
Well, I think there's also something to be said for when you're made to connect the dots in your mind. Sometimes, it's
worse.
It's worse.
It's terrible,
worse. And it's more real because you're doing it,
right?
And that's why the other ending. Sorry, just to finish my thought.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's why the other ending wouldn't work, because I think it takes away from John Doe. The stuff that John Doe has done up to this point in this movie is so terrible, so diabolical, so dark. It couldn't be any other way. The dog in the head certainly wouldn't, the dog's head in the box certainly wouldn't qualify. And then just having Mills shoot Somerset, yeah, that's pretty darn terrible. But you know what? Mills comes away justified. He does become Wrath, but he comes away more of a hero than a victim, because now it's self-defense. He's shot his partner or killed his partner somehow, and now he's taking out the guy that just killed his partner.
I agree.
It's not enough for the John Doe character. Those other options are not enough for his final piece.
Well, and so many times we see movies where they fumble the ending, and this is such a perfect ending.
Yep,
it just brings it all together.
It's perfect. It's horrible, but it's terrible. It is how the movie had to end.
Yes.
There is no other ending that makes a whole lot of sense. There's no way to make another without becoming really convoluted. There's just no other way that the end makes sense.
I think I read that Brad Pitt threw down and said he wasn't going to do the movie.
So we were talking about New Line Cinema, and they don't want to do the ending. They keep offering other suggestions and other ways. Both Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman contact the studio and says, if you change the ending of this movie, we're out. We're done. We walk. David Fincher doesn't have that kind of juice at this point. This is only his second movie. He doesn't have the ability to do that, but Morgan Freeman and Brad Pitt do. And they are able to use their influence and force the end of the movie that we get, and the movie is better for it. It is not a fun movie to watch, but it is a well done. It is a good movie. It is an interesting movie, and that's where I want to go next. So I was talking to Leo about this. This has been my real question about this movie ever since we talked about adding it to our list and covering it. I like movies that are rewatchable, that I can watch over and over again. Many of the movies that are in this vein, that are depressing, dark, heavy movies, I have seen and I have liked what they're doing or understood what they're doing, but I can only watch it one time. I've seen American History X one time. I've seen Joker one time. I don't know that I'll ever need to see those movies again, because I've got what it's saying, but I don't want to put myself through that again. However, with Se7en, I've seen it multiple times. I've seen it 10 or 12 times. It is on, not to bite into the next item on our agenda here, but it is up high on my list of thrillers. It might be my favorite thriller. It's certainly top 5. of thriller movies for me. Why? What is it about this movie that makes it more rewatchable than something like Joker, American History X, some of these dark, depressing, heavy movies? What could that be? And I know I'm asking you guys to tell me why I do something that's weird, but I really am curious. Why? What makes this rewatchable?
I would say that I agree with you that it's rewatchable, but I also feel the same way about Fight Club, which is also an extremely dark movie. I know it's made by the same guy with one of the same actors, but it's a dark movie. But I've watched that 30 times. But it's a journey with a twist. It's a journey that you're into. It's great filmmaking. It's great screenwriting. It's a great story. And at the end, you get hit in the gut on both of them. Right. You get what's in the box, and you get. I'm imagining this guy this whole time. You know, it's kind of the same thing. So I don't exactly know what that is, but it feels like the same kind of thing.
Leo, any idea why this movie would be more rewatchable than some of the others that are in the same vein?
I think there's a couple of things. One, I think Mo kind of nails it in her comment here, where it lets your mind fill in some of the blanks, which that can change over time.
Okay.
And so since so much of, not so much, but a lot of the story is not put in front of your face, you're filling it in. And this movie is so dark that I think it forces the audience where you feel so immersed in it that the 7 deadly sins are deadly sins for a reason, right? Like there's a reason why those were ever, why they were ever made, why they were ever conceived. And every single one of us can relate to one of those sins, at least one, in some way, not to the extent of some of these victims or some of these people, but we can relate to it, at least one, in some way. And so I think this movie kind of forces you to reflect a little bit on yourself at some point, somewhere, at some time. And it's so real. This movie, I mentioned to you earlier, Phillip, and I think it's because of what Mo says. And this movie could come out right now, this weekend. It could be released this weekend, and people would go out and watch it and be amazed by it. And it would get great ratings. And there's older movies that after time they become, a little stale. They're still great, but they're a little stale. There's just something about it that you can tell it's an old movie. The only thing that's aged in this movie is the old vehicles that are in there. The boxy 1980s style vehicles, the cab, the police cars. That's the only thing that is aged in this movie. Everything else could literally be happening today, right now. And it's just it's a timeless, and it's because I think of those two things. It's because, like Mo says, there's so much left to the audience, to the viewer, to kind of fill in your head. So it's a little bit different every time. You catch things you didn't catch before because your mind is focused on something different, because you think differently the next time you see it, unless you're watching it like every other day. And if you are, well, then you need help.
But turn off this podcast and call for help if you're watching 7 every other day.
Yeah. I think that's what it is.
I guess so. I've always written it off as the performances. I'm a big fan of the art of movie making, and the art of this movie is done really, really well. Whereas American History X and what they're doing with that movie, Joker and what they're doing with that movie, it's good. The message is good, but the technical side of things, the art of it, is not on the same level as this movie is. The artistic value of this movie make it worth the depression that I feel when I watch it, because it's really, really technically well done all the way through.
Yeah.
Like if you look at American History X, and then you look at Django Unchained. American History X is a great movie, but Django Unchained is on a similar subject matter, but it's done so well.
Yeah.
That it, I can watch that every 6 months or so and take the ride again. Whereas movies like Requiem for a Dream or American History X, I don't want to take that ride again. That was a one-time ride.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can remember the same time that I saw Seven for the first time is when I saw American History X for the first time. My best friend who I grew up with came and visited me at college. He was like, you got to watch this movie. We're both movie guys. He showed me American History X. He finished. He knows that I love movies and the art of movie making. So he stops the movie and he looks at me and he goes, what did you think? And I said, that may be the best movie that I'll never watch again. I got it. I get it. I know what it is. I don't like what that did to me. And I don't want to ever go through that again. Just an absolute gut punch of them. Another gut punch of the movie. Like Seven is, but American History X is almost worse. It's just a huge gut punch at the end of that movie. This was a time in movies that we really, really valued the twist ending. This is just pre Sixth Sense, but you've got The Usual Suspects, and you've got this was a big thing. Like the twist ending was really, really important around this time in Hollywood. I don't think The Crying Game, some of those things that like, ooh, this is completely different than what, and then you had to watch it again. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it is just the twist of the ending where you have to go back and watch it again, because there are things that you catch on a repeat viewing of this movie because of the end that you pick up. There's a moment where John Doe's in the car and he says that he allowed Mills to survive. He let him live. And he says, I want you to think about that every time you look yourself in the mirror. That means something in the moment, but when you go back and you know what's happening, it means so much more. Because John Doe knows that this person is going to be the one to execute him. And you're going to have to live with the fact that I allowed you to live and you are the one that took my life. It hits on a different level once you know the end. And so maybe that's part of it as well. The twist of the ending or the surprise ending, which was, again, such a big thing in the 90s. I'm not sure I can...
When has it been done recently? I haven't seen it done successfully.
I've got a whole thing about I don't think movies are good anymore. I can really get down and depressed about it because I think Hollywood is just punted at this point, and it's all about money and taking whatever IP they can and putting it on screen. It's Beetlejuice. We don't do things like Seven or Sixth Sense anymore unless we can attach a huge name to it or IP.
They're out there, but you got to find a gem. Every now and then I'll find a gem, and I'm like, oh, if only there was something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really unfortunate because I think Hollywood is really punted on because there's risk. They're risk averse. They do not want to take any risk. If they're going to pour $33 million or $66 million into something, they've got to get a return on the investment 10 times what they put into it, or it's a failure. And when you're living under that kind of gauge of success or failure, it has to earn 10 times what you spent on it for it to be successful. You don't take chances.
Streaming muddied the water so much to where, if they don't put out a blockbuster, then streaming eats it up and then they lose a ton of money.
Mo says people are afraid of being canceled. Everyone gets offended. There's some of that.
Yep.
There's certainly some of that. But I think it has to be a surefire 10 times what you spend on it. Yeah. I think every studio says if I'm spending $50 billion on it, I've got to make $500 million. I've got to make 10 times what I spent on it, or it's not successful. And that's a huge thing to ask. Movies aren't meant to be judged that way. Art, which is what movies are. Art is not meant to be judged that way. You can't say things with art if that's your ultimate motivation. And so we don't anymore. We don't say things with movies. We just make another Marvel movie. I like Marvel movies. I got nothing against superhero movies, but I'm a little saturated by the Marvel movie at this point. It's a little much. It's a little
Unless
too
it's
much.
Deadpool Wolverine.
That was an amazing.
Yeah.
I also really liked Robert Pattinson's Batman. It's kind of in
Yeah.
the same vein as Seven. It has that
Yeah.
feel to it. It had that vibe. And the second one's supposedly coming out next year. So
I like Pattinson's Batman. I did not like his Bruce Wayne.
I understand that too. And I like
Yeah.
the Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. I heard the sequel's terrible, but I liked the first
Yeah,
one.
same.
I like the first one, and I haven't watched the second one yet, but I love the idea of deconstructing this person that everybody is held up as a hero. The Joker is so cool, and Todd Phillips going, that wasn't the point. You missed the point.
Yeah.
Let me make the point again. And so he just deconstructs that character, which is what I hear the second one does. I kind of like that because they're going to lose money on the Joker sequel. It is
Oh, they already
bombing.
have.
Yeah, it's bombing. Huge. And a studio and a director and everybody that goes in saying, it is more important to us to tear down this effigy that people are creating of a character we did not mean for them to idolize, that we will lose money to rip this character apart. That's cool. That's really exciting to me.
No,
I like that idea.
Can y'all excuse me for just a second?
You bet.
Sure.
So, what else about Seven, Leo? What else is there to say about Seven? Why did we never get the sequel 8?
Yeah,
What happened to 1 through 6?
There there was supposed to be a sequel, and I think they, from what I read, they started filming, and it became a completely different movie, and was not 8, because it was supposed to be a movie called 8, actually,
That
and
would be awful.
and the G was the letter 8, just the way the V in 7 is the number 7. That was something that was supposed to be, but they couldn't get the same creative people in line for it, and they ended up trying an attempt, and then the movie becomes something totally different. They gave it a different title, and from what I read, it was absolutely horrible. And they were like, yeah, it's a good thing that that's not attached after all, even though at the beginning it was intended to be. Yeah.
Well, don't put it past Hollywood to go out and be like, we have 7, but we need to tell the original story and call it 1. And and start with John Doe and carry it all the way through the beginning. It's IP that exists, and we can milk it for everything it's worth. Don't put it past them. They'll do it.
I'm not gonna lie. It's not something I want to see, but it is something I thought about, because they mention at the end about him being independently wealthy. They have no idea who he is or where he came from. But when they actually found his apartment and went through his apartment, he's not living like an independently wealthy person. That to me was interesting. I'm like, what creates this monster? What happens to create this John Doe? A story that I probably would be interested in, but I'm fine if I never see it. Yeah, or
give them time; they'll get around to making it, because it's out there in the zeitgeist, and if they think they can make money off of it, they're going to jump on it, and they'll make it.
I wouldn't mind a well done, from a good studio and a good director and good actors, a 7-part series, expanded series, limited series. Each episode's a different one of the sins. You get you kind of get the everything we didn't see in the movie. We always saw the crime scene.
Right.
Well, you know what I mean? If it was done right.
It could be interesting. I'm sure.
But
there's somebody right now writing spec scripts for that and delivering it all over to Hulu and to Netflix and Max, and trying to sell that.
No, I want to see it
yet. I haven't watched any of it.
I've heard it's good.
Chef's kiss.
Yeah,
Really?
Amazing.
nice.
RC says, who would be a good director to do that, Jordan?
What's Fincher doing? Bring him back.
Yeah, what's
Bring it
Fincher
back.
doing? He can't be doing anything important. So where does this film rank for you? I think we kind of already talked through this. I think it's a top 10, top 5, maybe thriller for me. It is. Yeah.
It might be my it. I think it might be my number one thriller. After watching it again, I was floored by it again.
Yes.
You forget how good it is until you watch it again. It right now it may be number one for me as far as that genre.
I don't know if I throw Sixth Sense into that genre, it has to bump Se7en out of that. I think that they're both in that same sort of thriller zeitgeist or area, and Sixth Sense is just we're not covering it, and I kind of wish we were. It is a perfect movie. Sixth Sense does exactly what it needs to do. Every beat of it is so good. It's a little slow, but other than that, it is a perfect movie, just sort of beginning to end. And it has one of the best acting performances. The conversation between Cole and his mom in the car at the end of the movie of Sixth Sense. I defy anyone to find a better performance from two people in a conversation than that. There's not. They are incredible, both of them in that scene. Just doing an excellent job, an amazing job.
Signs is up there for me.
Signs is really good too. A lot of people give Signs crap. I like Signs a lot.
Rocked my world.
I liked it till the end. The whole water thing and the swing away, and that just ruined the whole thing for me. I thought it was great up until that, and then after that, I was like,
but it's funny because it's kind of
water
the same thing as War of the Worlds. It was water that killed the aliens in the end of that movie too, and that is an insane thriller. I thought that movie was really, really well done as well.
I need to go back and watch War of the Worlds. I don't know why it didn't connect with me the first time I watched it, and I just haven't ever gone back around to it. It's Spielberg and Cruise. Like, I love both of those guys. I don't know why I wouldn't like. And I love the source material. War of the Worlds is a great book.
Who's the guy that plays Dufresne in Shawshank? I can't remember his name.
Tim Robbins.
The
scene between Tom Cruise and Tim Robbins in that movie is one of the most intense scenes in a movie that you're gonna find. I mean,
I got to go back and watch it. I do. I don't know why it didn't connect with me the first time I saw it.
We're talking the second War of the Worlds, the one with Tom Cruise in it.
Yeah.
That was a great movie, except for one thing: the constant screaming of what's her name? Dakota Fanning, screaming relentlessly throughout the movie over and over again. It got to me. Outside of that,
I can see that. RC popping in. Bruce Willis, love him. I just watched Death Becomes Her with my family the other day. It is a really weird black comedy done by Robert Zemeckis. Bruce Willis is the best. Like, Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep are in that movie, and they still, like, Bruce Willis gives the best performance in that whole movie. It is incredible. I love Bruce Willis. I am very, very, very sad to see what's happened to Bruce Willis. His health concerns and where his health has taken him is sad. Feel bad for Bruce Willis. And that's saying something, because this guy is an incredible actor. He was rich beyond my wildest dreams. He has an amazing family. He was married to Demi Moore, and I still feel bad for him. Because nobody should have to go through what he's going through.
No.
So, but yeah, I absolutely love Bruce Willis. Thing is, I get how you wonder what species. She's talking about your Signs issue. And she says, I get how you can wonder why a species would come here where most of the planet's covered by an element that can kill them, yet humans die in water every day. This is still a planet with useful resources from a great distance. So she's saying, hey, maybe there's still value in the planet.
And I get what he's saying. The ending is a little cheeseball, but there's moments in that movie.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Great. When he's in her room and he sees it on the roof, I mean, there's just so many moments in that movie.
There are some really great. I love these moments. M. Night Shyamalan does a great job with these really heartfelt moments. There are two in Signs that I think of when he talks to, strangely enough, M. Night Shyamalan, who has killed his wife. When they have their confrontation, that is really powerful.
Yeah, in the driveway.
Yeah, in the driveway. They never look at each other. They never make eye contact. It's really, really powerful. And then the accident, which is actually a flashback in the film, but the accident where do you understand what I just told you? You told me I'm going to talk to my wife for the last time, is a really powerful scene. Mel Gibson, for the dirtbag he became, really good actor. Kevin Spacey-esque all the way around. Dirtbag guy, really good actor. And a great
Apocalypto is one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion.
Good movie.
Braveheart's really good. I like
Braveheart. Yeah, that's fantastic.
So yeah, this would be up there in my thrillers, but I don't think I could put it in my top spot if we count Sixth Sense. Like Sixth Sense is just such a good movie.
Yeah,
such a well done movie.
It's I can't argue with you. Sixth Sense is great, but okay, serial killer movie.
That's the rewatchability of Seven.
Okay, serial killer movie. Let me think. Silence of the Lambs is good, but I really think Silence of the Lambs sets a great foundation that Seven builds on and perfects. Like Silence of the Lambs came first, and it provided Hollywood enough that, like, ooh, people will watch something like this, and that's how we get Seven. Silence of the Lambs is really good, but I think Seven is better.
I agree.
Zodiac was a really good serial killer movie.
I have never seen that one. I have not seen that one.
Yep.
Heard lots of good things about it, but I need to watch it. Well, we are getting together again in a few weeks, Leo.
Mm-hmm.
Right at the beginning of November, we're going to get together for another movie. And as is our norm, I'm not going to tell anybody what the movie is. I am going to say we've mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
We have mentioned it. So at one point in this episode, it was mentioned. And I will say that hope is a good thing. It is maybe the best of things. And that's all I could really say.
There's your hint right there.
If we're going from one of the least, RC top 10 Halloween movies. This is great. We're gonna wrap on.
We're coming up to Halloween, yeah.
Halloween is coming up. We did not specifically choose this because of the Halloween connection or the scary movie connection, but it did work out that way. But we got Halloween coming up. Let's not do top 10 because that's going to take forever. But what are some of your I have to watch Halloween movies or scary movies when we get to Halloween?
I'm trying to think of what we've been watching recently.
I like what Iris just mentions.
The San Antonio water system? Yeah.
She says Saws. I say Saw, the first one.
The first one had a killer twist at the end.
Yes.
Saw is a good movie. Everything behind Saw is not a good movie.
Although Spiral with Chris Rock wasn't terrible.
I have not seen that one because they lost me about 3 or 4 movies deep. I just went, okay, I'm done with this.
You don't have to watch any of those to see that one. I'll just put it that way.
So I just gave up on that. But Saw is a really good, very innovative, excellent movie. Everything that comes behind it is crap. It's just trying to rewarm. It's trying to microwave Saw and serve it to me again. And I don't like it. I don't like that. I don't want that. If I want to watch Saw, I'll just watch Saw again. It's really, really good.
For me, all these Texas Chainsaw
Yeah.
Massacre, I'm a huge
Good
fan.
one.
They're all
Good one.
all pretty good. I love the Rob Zombie Halloween movies.
Sure.
That might not be a popular opinion, but I thought he did an amazing job on that. And then when it comes to the kids, I love the original Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Good. It's really good.
I thought the second one wasn't terrible. As far as redos go, I think they did a decent job. My opinion.
Give me, instead of taking every plot idea that you've had for the past 20 years between movies and trying to stick them all in one movie, just give me one clear plot. Just give me one through plot instead of taking 5 different things and creating a movie out of it. Just give me one.
It was
that was my big issue with Beetlejuice, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone. It's worth seeing. Absolutely see it if you like Beetlejuice. It's worth watching, but expect exactly what it is. It is a reserving of Beetlejuice, and it is a cash grab. It is going to play on some fan service kind of moments, and that's okay. Sometimes that's what we want. One of my favorite reboots or redos was Ghostbusters Afterlife. I think is an excellent movie. It is nothing but fan service from the beginning to end of Afterlife. It is just fan service, and that's fine. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted to go, I recognize that music. I know what that thing is. Oh, I know what that ghost is. That's what I wanted. And that's what they gave me. And they did a great job with it.
I feel like the Beetlejuice 2 is the same thing.
Yeah. Maybe.
Not as well done, but
I just need one plot. I don't need 5 plots. That was my big issue with Beetlejuice. Well, we will be Hollywood movie or Halloween movies. Leo, what did you like Megan?
Which one?
Megan, May 3 June, whatever. Did you see that last year? Was it last year or 2 years ago?
Oh,
Megan.
Yeah, no, I did not see it. I did not see.
It's pretty good. It's kind of good. It's kind of sneaky good. Smile was really, really good.
I've heard Smile is good.
The last 15 minutes of it are kind of weird, but the movie itself is pretty good. I like what it's saying and what trauma, the effect trauma has on our lives, which is really what the theme of the movie is. And I think it does a really good job of making a statement on that. So for a weird horror movie that has some really good jump scares, I think it has a really good message in it as well.
They had a great campaign for that movie.
Yeah, they did. RC says Candyman, It, Exorcist. All good.
I'm more a fan of the older stuff, like I Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one. I thought that's a classic. Yeah. As Jordan said, with the Rob Zombie movies, The House of a Thousand Corpses was pretty darn good. But yeah, I haven't really seen a good horror movie. Not because I've seen. I mean, there's a ton of bad ones, but I know I'm sure there's some good ones out. I just don't go. They don't draw my attention so much anymore. Christine's another good one that I really enjoy.
Christine is really good.
Which one?
13 Ghosts. That one.
Sounds familiar.
Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, Matthew Lillard in it, and it's kind of interesting.
Definitely cheeseball horror movie, but classic.
Yeah. I don't think I saw that one, but I've heard about it. Yeah, most says same thing.
Jeepers
13
Creepers.
Ghosts. Dude, Jeepers Creepers. I think I've told you this before, Phillip. That movie scared the crap out of me because it was the first time that a monster could freaking drive
and fly.
Like, that's it, and fly, but it could drive, and that just really, really bothered me because in other monster movies, if you can get in a vehicle that's fast enough, you can get away at a safe distance and you're okay. But this thing can hop in his truck and follow you. And that really bothered me. Yeah, Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers. He's right. Missions Highlighter says Shannon Elizabeth is in that 13 Ghost movie. That's right. She's the daughter. Tony Shalhoub is in that movie. He is the father in that movie that moves into the house.
Yeah.
Monk. Jeepers Creepers is definitely one of those that you have to be able to divorce the art from the artist, because if you ever go and research the director of Jeepers Creepers and Jeepers Creepers 2, he is a Roman Polanski kind of guy. He is not a good person at all in any way.
That brings up Eyes Wide Shut, which I think is another fantastic movie.
You talking about the
Roman Polanski movie with Tom Cruise and
that's Kubrick. That's Stanley Kubrick.
You're right. I'm sorry.
That's not Polanski, but Eyes Wide Shut is might even be Kubrick's final movie.
It was. He died right after that.
Yeah. Mo couldn't sit through that one. Eyes Wide Shut. Couldn't sit through Eyes Wide Shut. I get that. I understand.
28 Days Later is probably my favorite zombie movie.
I do like zombie movies. The remake, the 2001, 2, 3-ish remake of Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead.
That's the one in the mall, right?
Yeah, with Ving Rhames and
That's a good one.
Pretty good. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not going to win any awards or anything, but it's fun.
Fun though.
Yep.
It's got the guy from Modern Family in a completely different role. The dad, the Phil Dunphy dad from Modern Family, in a completely different role. You do not think of Phil Dunphy that way. World War Z.
I Am Legend.
R.C. Wood says, I Am Legend's pretty good.
Legend's good.
Which was a remake of a Charlton Heston movie called Omega Man, which is interesting for you to go back and watch at the time.
I do like cheesy sort of slasher flicks. Halloween, the original Halloween is kind of good. Artistically, I like some of the stuff that it does and some of the stuff it created for the horror industry. Chucky, Child's Play, the first one, is really kind of good. Brad Dourif, who is the voice of Chucky, and plays whatever his name is, Charles Lee Riley or whatever the serial killer's name is right at the beginning of the movie, is really, really good.
The Ring and The Grudge were classics.
The Ring is good.
1990s Leo really liked Jennifer Tilly, so even though the movie was bad, the Bride of Chucky.
Sure,
that was
Bride of Chucky. It's a terrible movie. In fact, that's the killer about horror. That's the killer about horror movies, is they make a decent one, and then everything that comes behind it is just awful.
But there's a whole subculture that loves that.
That's true. But Nightmare on Elm Street, Halloween,
now we got all the
Terrifier. Friday the 13th.
Freddy versus Jason.
Freddy versus Jason. Jason Goes. What was the one? Jason in Space. What was it called?
It was called. Where he's in space. I forget. I keep wanting to say SpaceX, but I know that's not right.
Jason X. It was Jason
X.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or just X is what Mission Highlighter is saying. Hey, RC says Jerry liked Jennifer Tilly too. I think a bunch of us around the same age were big fans of Jennifer Tilly. I'm just saying. For some reason, for a few reasons.
The voice. It's her voice.
The same reason my generation loved Tara Reid.
Tara Reid, like American Pie Tara Reid?
She was in a bunch of horror movies too, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Mission Highlighter is Shaun of the Dead. That's a great one. I mean, it's a comedy.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
I do like you. You were talking about some of the kid-friendly ones. Beetlejuice, Ghostbusters is always a good one to bring out this time of year.
Not E.T.
The Nightmare Before Christmas, not E.T. Nightmare Before Christmas is pretty good. So, well, we will be back with you guys in November. The date I have is November 5th. That's an election day. We might all need some something else to listen to or talk about. So why don't we do that? Normally I would say, oh, it's an election day. We need to cancel and move to a different day. I think we're all going to need a distraction between 7 and 9 on election day. You won't be getting any results yet. You will have already voted. So come hang out with us on November 5th, and we will talk about hope and hope being a good thing. And we may all need to talk a little bit about hope when we get to November 5th. What do you think? Is that going to work, Leo?
I think any kind of distraction would be good on that day.
Yeah, I think so.
For
sure.
Well, 7, it's a good movie. It's not one I'm going to
Really
go
good.
home and like watch again for the next, few months.
No.
I may not watch it for another year or so, but it's a good movie. It's a well-done movie. And I'm glad you guys joined me and talked about it. I'm glad we got to spend some time talking about it. With that being said,
Yeah.
want everybody out there to remember life's like a movie. Write your own ending. Keep believing. Keep pretending. We'll see you guys next time, November 5th. Adios.